Hi there, everyone. So unfortunately, I had to be out today due to getting in a pretty bad car accident this morning on the way to school. But I just wanted to give some guidance of how to proceed with what we're going to practice today. So we've had a little bit of an intro into how to determine the vertex and axis of symmetry of a graph. So building off of that, I wanted to give an equation in standard form and using what we know about our axis of symmetry, the way our graphs will open, whether it's positive or negative, and the location of the vertex, we can start matching our equations to the graphs pictured over here on the right. So you'll see that we have A, B, C, D, E to work with, and then on the back side, you will draw a quick sketch. So I'm going to start with just the A, B, C, D, E options on the front. And I'll start with the first one. So for problem number 1, we're just trying to figure out which graph it's going to be. So first things first, before we even get into anything really challenging or difficult, notice that there's a negative sign, which means if our function is negative, if our quadratic and parabola is negative, it's automatically going to look like a sad face. So option A is a possibility, option B is not. Option C is a possibility, option D is not, and option E is a possibility because they're all negative parabolas. Now, to move forward, we're going to need to figure out, we've kind of talked about the opening, we need to figure out the axis of symmetry, and hopefully that will narrow it down. And if needed and necessary, we can plug in X to find Y and ultimately decide where the vertex is. So first things first, we're going to start off by identifying A, B, and C. A is first in the equation. A was negative 0.5. B is second in the alphabet. It's second in the equation. It's just the number 4. And C is the third in the alphabet, third in the equation. And also C stands for constant term. It's whatever does not have an X. And so that's going to be 1. We know that if we want to find our axis of symmetry, AOS, and we've been practicing this, that we will use opposite of B over 2A to find that. And I like to just go ahead and plug in those values. B is 4, A is negative 0.5, and this is the point in which we would elect to get a calculator out and simplify this if needed, if you like stress out with the decimals. 2 times negative 1/2 is just going to result in negative 1. I think of cutting 2 in half. 0.5 is the same thing as 1/2, so cutting 2 in half is 1, and then there was a negative sign. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 leaves us with X equals 4. So I automatically know my vertex is going to be at 4 comma something, which means option A is definitely out of here. Why? Because this axis of symmetry is at X equals 2, and I just found out that X is equal to 4. Option C, we can see that right here, number 1, the vertex says 4, 7, but also our axis of symmetry is over here at 4, so this is a maybe. And let's check with our last option. Here we can see that the axis of symmetry and the vertex was X is negative 2, so we are not going to lock in option E. And from a process of elimination, we do know that our answer would be C, but let's just take one more step to verify and check that the Y coordinate is in fact going to be 7. So if I wanted to find Y, I would plug it into my original equation, negative 0.5x squared plus 4 times x minus 1. We said x was 4. And if I simplify this in my calculator, that gives me Y equals negative 0.5. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 4 is 16 again. And if I continue simplifying from left to right using the order of operations, negative 0.5 times 16 is negative 8. If I punch all of this into my calculator, I get 8 minus 1, which is 7, which does match this vertex of 4, 7 right here. So C is definitely the solution. Using all of this, you should be able to work through and use the strategies we've shown here, like the process of elimination, to determine which equations match for each graph, or which graph matches each equation on problems 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can pause this video and work on that. I'm going to explain the second half of the worksheet, which says to find the axis of symmetry and vertex and sketch a graph and show you my expectations for that. So again, this is very similar to what we just did. In order to now do the opposite and sketch a graph, I have to know where the vertex and axis of symmetry is, and then we'll just do a quick sketch like we have been doing. So if I want to find my axis of symmetry, my AOS, remember that's X is opposite of B over 2A. Let me move this actually down a little bit further. And what we'll definitely need to do first is, again, identify A, identify B, and identify C from the equation. For number 1, A is negative 2, B is positive 4, and C is negative 2. Now that I have this information, I can start plugging it in. Opposite of B over 2 times A. B was the number 4, A was negative 2, and so this would simplify to negative 4 over negative 4, which is really just 1. I'm going to make this a little smaller, just so it's not taking over too much space here on our problems. Okay, so I automatically know that my axis of symmetry is here at X is equal to 1. So I'm going to draw a dashed line at X is equal to 1. Since A is negative, I do know that my graph is going to look like a sad face. If A is positive, it will, just like in problem number 2, if A is positive, then I know the general shape will look like a smiley face. Now I need to figure out the topmost part of my vertex or the bottommost part of my vertex. And since I have X, I will need to plug in and find Y. I'm going to use the original equation, Y equals negative 2 times X squared plus 4 times X minus 2. We found that X was just the number 1 last time. And now we're going to go from left to right using the order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, whatever comes first from left to right, and leaving adding and subtracting to be last. So I do see parentheses, but I want to do the exponents first, which means I have to do 1 squared first, which is just 1. So I have negative 2 times 1 plus 4 times 1 minus 2. And now that I've done that, I'm ready to do the multiplying from left to right. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. 4 times 1 is 4. And now I'm just left to simplify negative 2 plus 4 minus 2. And I believe negative 2 plus 4 is negative 2. No, negative 2 plus 4 is positive 2. Take away 2. I get Y equals 0. So my vertex is going to be at X is 1, Y is 0. And as far as the sketch goes, we're just going to leave it like this for now. It's going to open down. You would continue this for problems 2 through 8 in the same fashion, but just be careful that A is the number in front of x squared, B is the number in front of x, and C is the constant term. So something I'm observing and noticing as I go through, you should be able to do 2, 3, and 4 the same way. However, when it comes to 5, notice that there's no number at the end. And so when you're determining A, that's still going to be -3. B is going to be +3, but C is going to be 0, which would affect your formulas. Same thing with problem number 6. We have no constant term. A number that represents nothing is 0. So here A is 4, B is -6, C is 0. And looking at problem 7 and 8, problem 7, this is missing plus 0x. So I could really rewrite that equation as being y equals -x squared plus 0x minus 6. And that's obviously going to affect A, B, and C. A is -1 because it's a -1 of the x squareds. B is nothing, and C is -6. And similarly for problem number 8, again, it's missing the x term. So this is the same as 7x squared plus 0x because there is no x, and we can use 0 to represent nothing, plus 3. And so that will help you with identifying A, B, and C. If you need to rewind and go back to any point of this video, please know that that's available to you. And if you would like to change the speed at which you watch this video to assist you while you're working through the problems, I encourage you to use this video, stop it, rewind, pause, whatever you need to best assist your learning journey. Thanks so much. I will have this assignment due on Sunday, and I hope to see you guys next week. Sorry again, but thank you for your patience.